Hey everyone, this is Trainboy54, and what I'll be doing today is I'll be doing my thoughts on Thomas & Friends' Extraordinary Engines. So starting off with Engine of the Future, a new engine, Extraordinary, Hugo the Rail Zeppelin. Wow, Hugo the Rail Zeppelin? That sounds like a nice name. And such a brand new engine, too. The other engines think that Hugo will replace all of them. What makes the engines think that Hugo will replace them? Later that night, Hugo arrives at the sheds. He asks if there's room for him to rest, but the engines tell him that they're unfortunately full, and attempt to scare him off by telling him that it's for steam engines only. Hey! That's not very nice. Well, Hugo did spend the night in the shunting yard. The next morning, Thomas explains that Hugo is trying to replace all the steam engines, but he does not want to believe it. Percy tells him that Stephen claimed that he can do whatever he wants. Well, that explains what makes the steam engines think that Hugo is going to replace all of them. But Hugo says that he doesn't have couplers, so he can't pull cars or coaches. Oh, so that's why Hugo is a rail Zeppelin. Realizing that they've hurt his feelings, the engines feel terrible about how unkind they were to Hugo. So they had to do something to cheer him up. While Hugo is taking some important passengers from Knapford Station to Vicarstown. That evening, Hugo comes back to Knapford and sees the engines again, making up for the mistake they made by cheering for him and putting on a party. Well, that's something to say sorry to Hugo. Hugo is very grateful for what the engines are doing, and they see it as a very friendly thing. And that night he sleeps with the steam team at the sheds and dozes off to sleep. But wait, there are 7 Berts. Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, Toby, or Emily. Sorry, I had Toby in my mind. Should Henry or Percy have something to do for night? I mean, Henry takes the flying kipper, Percy takes the mail train. Which of them have left the sheds? Henry in the dark. Well, some signs are Sodor are painted in a special luminous paint that glows in the dark. It helps the engines see the signs during the night. Henry goes to the steamworks to be repainted. However, Kevin gives him the glow-in-the-dark paint by mistake. When it got dark, the paint becomes active, which means Henry is glowing in the dark. Thomas sees Henry first and thinks that Henry is a ghost train. Then James saw Henry next and warns Gordon that there's a ghost train ahead. Nonsense, James. There's no such thing as a ghost train. There is now, Gordon. See for yourself. Huh? Oh! Well, that gave Gordon a look on his face. At Tedma's sheds, James describes the ghost train to the other engines. Hey, Thomas did a bit of describing. Gordon explains to Percy that he wasn't actually scared when he saw the ghost train. Hey, you were scared, Gordon. I can tell you were. But it's not just the steam team who are frightened of the ghost train, or Henry as the ghost train. Cranky, Porter, and Salty think Henry is the ghost too, until Henry explains that it's him. Salty and Porter say that he's glowing. Cranky brings down a mirror to show him, and Henry is amazed, thinking that it's a good joke. Well, I don't think it's a good joke. When Henry got back to Tidmus Sheds from pulling the flying kipper, it's daytime, so he's not glowing in the dark anymore. No one could sleep. They were too busy thinking about the ghost train that they saw. Henry tries to explain, but Gordon and James tease him because of how scared Henry was once of the rain. That night, the engines refused to take the mail train. Sir Topham Hatt is very cross. He tells the engines that there are no such thing as ghost trains. When Henry comes back, everyone, even Sir Topham Hatt, give a fright. But Henry tells the engines at last that it's just him, leaving Gordon and James annoyed. But the rest of the engines puzzled. A figure with a bucket on its head emerges from the coal bunker. While everyone is horrified, however, it's just Sir Topham Hatt. He says that Henry has the wrong kind of paint and orders him to get the right paint the first thing tomorrow. However, Henry, since you are the only engine working tonight, you'll receive a glowing report as a bonus. Thank you, sir. Is that all? Next, the missing breakdown train. Hey, I got to see Judy and Jerome again. Judy and Jerome, the breakdown train, become bored at Knapford Station Yard. Ryan offers to take them to Augsburg Harbor. They embrace the change in scenery, but they soon become unsated at the harbor, or they became bored again, so they ask another engine to take them somewhere else. Oliver takes them to the Field of Sheep on Duck's branch line. Then Duck takes them to the Blue Mountain Quarry. Meanwhile, Daisy derails to avoid hitting the bull that lives on the Harwick branch line. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Thomas searches the breakdown train but couldn't find Judy and Jerome. Ryan travels to each place the cranes went until he traces them down at the Blue Mountain Quarry. The two breakdown cranes are delighted to finally have an emergency to tend to. They soon put Daisy back on the rails, and that evening Sir Topham Hatt informs Judy and Jerome that it is important to know where they are when there is an emergency. However, realizing that Rocky is not the only crane on the island of Sodor, he decides that Judy and Jerome should be assigned to be stationed at the Augsburg goods yard, so they can help out when there are accidents on the western part of the island. Is this all what Trainboy 54 has to say, what his thoughts are on extraordinary engines? Oh, no think so. To hear more on his thoughts about extraordinary engines, you'll have to stay tuned for the next video, or check out the link in the description box. Hold your faces until you get long. Find out more on Trainboy 54's thoughts on Thomas and Friends Extraordinary Engines.